Greetings, friends. You are on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine as of August 25th, 2025. A large number of events have taken place today, so let's get started. Overall, if we analyze and summarize all the information that has come in over the past 24 hours, from the Zaporizhzhia direction all the way to the Kupyansk sector, it is clear that the front line on the Ukrainian side is gradually collapsing. The pace of the Russian advance is increasing, and it is becoming more and more apparent that this process is already irreversible. So let's begin, and we will start with the Zaporizhzhia direction, where there have been some adjustments along the line. Over the past day, Ukrainian sources published this video footage, where we can schematically observe how Russian units advanced through the northern part of the settlement of Plavny, how the Russian army entered the southwestern part of the settlement of Stepnohirsk, and in which buildings they established positions. After these positions were identified, Ukrainian aviation began striking them. This particular building was destroyed during the video we just saw. Based on this footage and the information published by Ukrainian sources, we can draw certain conclusions. It appears that Russian forces have almost completely cleared the settlement of Plavny, advanced along the railway, and secured positions in the southwestern and western parts of Stepnohirsk. Recall that even yesterday, pro-Ukrainian cartographers noted the Russian advance in northern Plavny. Moreover, they already marked the northern part of Plavny as a grey zone or contested territory. This suggested that even pro-Ukrainian analysts suspected that the Russians had broken through the line here. Today, geolocations have appeared, and now conclusions can be drawn. We see that the Russian army is gradually approaching Stepnohirsk from at least 3 directions. There is a high probability that the Russian army will not stop at this section, but will continue storming operations. Stepnohirsk is not just a settlement, but a small agglomeration that includes several populated areas. Looking at the map, we can see that from Stepnohirsk onward, the city, villages and Daka settlements stretch northward, all the way to Zaporizhzhia itself. It looks like a single urban strip, essentially the outskirts of Zaporizhzhia, that has been pushed outward toward Pavlivka and Orikhiv. In other words, starting from here, the Russian army can already advance gradually through built-up areas, moving further north toward settlements such as Balabino and eventually Zaporizhzhia itself. A very important point. But the offensive in the Zaporizhzhia sector is being conducted not only on the western side, not only from the western flank. Today, Russian forces are also advancing actively on the eastern Zaporizhzhia front. Here, the movement is directed towards settlements such as Huliaipol, Pokrovsk, and Alexandrivka, but most importantly toward the R85 highway that links these settlements. In the long term, the physical cutting of the R85 road could have unpredictable consequences for the Ukrainian grouping located in Orikhiv and Huliaipol. That is the exact purpose of the Russian offensive here. Almost every week, 2 or 3 videos are published from this sector by the Vostok group, showing new territories and villages being cleared. This morning was no exception. The Vostok group published this objective control footage, where we can observe the battle for a small village called Zaporizhzhia. We see artillery preparation, FAB strikes, drone strikes, and finally, in the last seconds of the video, several moments where Russian soldiers raised the flags and banners of different units that fought for Zaporizhzhia in this sector. Based on this objective control footage, we draw conclusions. Yesterday the map looked like this, and some Western analysts already noted that Russian troops had reached the outskirts of the village. Today we have visual confirmation of its full capture. With the taking of Zaporizhzhia, the Russian army has reached a cluster of small villages in this sector: Stepov, Berezove, Ternov, Kalinivsky, and Novomikhailivka. These small villages may later serve as an important springboard for further advances westward toward the R85 road leading to Pokrovsk and Huliaipol. We see that the Ukrainian side is still unable to stabilize the front line despite the relatively small pace of Russian progress. The key point remains that this progress, however small, continues steadily. At the same time, there is still some uncertainty in the area of the villages of Andreevka, Klevtsova, Zeleny High, Novokatska, and Tolstoya. Heavy fighting continues there, Apparently, the Russian army has managed to regroup after setbacks over the past several days. The front line has been stabilized, and Russian forces are now gradually moving into a counter-offensive. Moreover, some Western analysts mark the entire area between Andriivka, Klevtsove, Zeleny High and Tolstoye as a grey zone, showing that the fields, tree lines and roads here are not controlled by either side, with ongoing meeting engagements. The Ukrainians confidently control, or partially control, villages along the Vovcha River, while the Russians rely on the Mokry-Yaly River. Fighting here is intense. But despite this uncertainty, very interesting news has emerged slightly to the northeast, in the Novopavlivka sector. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the center group of forces had fully captured the village of Filia, located south and southwest of Novopavlivka. We marked this development yesterday, during the day from August 23rd to 24. At that time, there was no geolocation evidence to confirm the Russian advance. Today, those confirmations have appeared. In the footage, we can observe how the battle for Filia unfolded, how Russian assault troops and saboteurs infiltrated either in pairs or individually, securing positions and gradually forcing out Ukrainian formations. In the final seconds of the footage, we again see Russian soldiers raising flags in different parts of the settlement. Based on this, we made our conclusions yesterday. Today, however, new information has arrived that the Ukrainian side is regrouping north of Filia to prepare a counterattack. Their goal is simple: to push the Russians back and restore control over the Vovcha River south of Novopavlivka. However, Russian reconnaissance is not idle, and concentrations of Ukrainian units have already been spotted in the forested area north of Filia. Russian forces are carrying out powerful airstrikes on this forest to disrupt the regrouping and prevent a full-scale counteroffensive. This moment is crucial for the entire front. If the Russians secure Filia and manage to drive Ukrainian forces from that forest, north of Filia, south of Novopavlivka, it would mean the beginning of battles for Novopavlivka itself, an extremely important settlement for both the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia directions. If Russian forces manage to secure Novopavlivka, which is a fairly large settlement, it would allow them during the autumn-winter campaign to amass significant resources before advancing further toward key settlements such as Mezhova, possibly westward toward Malomikhailivka, Havrilivka and Ivanivka. This is why Novopavlivka is such a critical point, and why Syrsky himself repeatedly highlights in his reports that the heaviest fighting is taking place in the Zaporizhzhia, Novopavlivka and Pokrovsk directions. These areas are constantly mentioned in his updates. Friends, allow me a brief moment, as usual, to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you watch my videos regularly but are not yet subscribed, please do so. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to those who have already subscribed. Now let's continue. Next, we move on to the Pokrovsk sector of the front. Over the past 24 hours, little has been recorded here. Fighting continues, with storming operations directed at the Shakov pocket. The Russian army has approached this key point both from the southeast and from the west, and the assaults are ongoing. At this stage, however, the Ukrainian side is still capable of offering some resistance. Next, we move to the Siversk-Lyman direction, where the main fighting is unfolding around the settlement of Lyman. Today, Ukrainian sources published an analytical report stating that the Russian West Group has begun gradually introducing the tactic and strategy of using sabotage and reconnaissance groups in this sector. According to Ukrainian sources, Russian forces infiltrate in pairs and threes through the non-continuous defense lines of the Ukrainian armed forces, sometimes bypassing them entirely, and Ukrainian units have even discovered Russian strongpoints behind their rear lines. Naturally, this leads to disorganization and accelerates the erosion of the entire front line on the Ukrainian side. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces advanced near the settlement of Kolodezi. A small strongpoint came under the control of the Russian armed forces. Neutral cartographers confirmed this. As a result, the Ukrainian army gradually began pulling its units back from an adjacent strongpoint toward the settlements of Stavki and Zarikne. In the near future, the front line will shift even closer to Lyman. A bit further north, according to open sources and pro-Ukrainian channels, the Ukrainian 3rd Assault Brigade carried out a series of counterattacks in the direction of Novomikhailivka. Ukraine's general staff claimed that during this counterattack, the settlement of Novomikhailivka came under the control of the Russian armed forces. Pro-Russian sources quickly responded to this statement, publishing numerous objective control videos showing the losses suffered by the Ukrainian army during the counterattack. In the footage, we can see an infantry fighting vehicle or armored vehicle destroyed on the approaches to Novomikhailivka. Just 5 minutes before this footage was released, another Russian video appeared showing in more detail strikes against Ukrainian assault troops, along with statistics about the losses of the Ukrainian 3rd Assault Brigade, up to 20 troops and a significant amount of equipment. For now, however, we will not make map adjustments until further geolocations are available. Perhaps soon, Novomikhailivka will be marked on the maps, possibly even temporarily in favor of the Ukrainian armed forces. Now let's move on to the Kupyansk sector, where this morning a flood of reports began to arrive, significantly altering the overall picture of what is happening in and around the settlement of Kupyansk and the wider agglomeration. Today, according to several pro-Russian sources and geolocations published by the Ukrainian side, we can conclude that Kupyansk is either encircled operationally or possibly even fully trapped in a cauldron. Maps illustrating this situation have been released by certain units and telegram channels connected to the Azov, Russian West Group. According to these maps and analyses, the Russian army is storming 2 settlements, Blahodatovka and Osinovi. Both of these settlements are marked on maps as still being under firm Ukrainian control. A telegram channel affiliated with the West Group published a video showing a Russian assault trooper dropping a bomb or mortar shell on a Ukrainian armed forces bunker, which then detonates. The author of the footage claims this is part of the storming of Ukrainian positions and the clearing of a forest nicknamed Snail. This Snail Forest is part of the operation aimed at advancing toward Blahodatovka. The situation around Osinov is also being clarified. A map has been circulated showing that the settlement of Sadovi is either fully or partially under Russian control. This suggests a fairly deep breakthrough by Russian forces, an attempt to encircle Blahodatovka, to reach the Oskil River from the west, and to storm Osinov itself. Summarizing what is being published online today about the Kupyansk direction, according to various pro-Russian experts, Russian forces currently control approximately this sector of the front, including large forested areas where they have secured positions. Russian units are steadily advancing toward the key logistical routes running through Pristine and Osinov. These are the last supply roads still available to the Ukrainian grouping inside the Kupyansk agglomeration. Given this configuration, it appears the battle for Kupyansk is reaching its final phase. A full encirclement is possible, and the Kupyansk situation may be resolved much sooner than the battles in the Pokrovsk agglomeration or near Kostiantynivka. Furthermore, pro-Ukrainian cartographers and sources have published videos from the northwestern part of Kupyansk itself. According to the author, the footage shows Ukrainian special forces conducting counterattacks, clearing buildings one by one. The geolocations have been confirmed. In these clips, we see strikes on what may be Russian positions inside the city. This indicates that Russian troops are not only positioned around Kupyansk's perimeter. More and more footage is appearing from within the urban areas of the Kupyansk agglomeration and the city itself. The Russian army is storming and advancing, not only on the western flanking approach, but also inside the northwestern part of Kupyansk itself. In the near future, we should expect the intensity of fighting to increase further. It seems that Kupyansk may fall very soon. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the best to you.